welcome to Monkey Broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show with me, the Jonin Monkey.
And me, Sven the Crusader. No, you didn't just hear Jonin misspeak. We are making this monthly again.
Oh yes, after the E3 special, for some reason, I had a moment of madness and decided, you know what, I enjoyed editing this, and I kind of miss having something come out on a regular basis.
Yeah, I kind of miss seeing our work come out on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's been one of my biggest regrets, but anyway. Point is, yeah, on this great month of July, the show is now coming back in a slightly smaller form just for the sake of, well, making sure it actually comes out. So keep an eye out for us at the end of the month, and if you're old listeners, welcome back. If you're new listeners, thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, lately we could use the views.
Yeah, pretty much. I could think of a clever intro here, but let's not waste time with any of that waffle. Instead, let us go straight into the first section.
Q&A!
This is the section where we answer 6 of the questions sent to us by our listeners. If you'd like us to answer your questions, either leave it in the comments, send it to me via PMs, or tweet me at the Jonin Monkey with the hashtag MBQuestion. And thankfully, some of our old fans have sent us a large amount of questions that should keep us going for months, and just looking at the backlog we have, I can say there are going to be some very interesting Q&A sessions up ahead.
Awesome. And by the way, guys, for those of you who came back and inundated us with questions, now more than ever, you do not know how much I appreciate you. First question comes from Infernity Zero.
How would you rate the Final Fantasy games in terms of plot and/or characters?
Wow, that's a good question. Shonen, do you have any input on this before I get started? Because I know you've played fewer games than I have.
Yeah, that's the thing. Just to put this into context, the only Final Fantasy games I've actually played myself are 9, 5, and 3, and 9 I've only just started recently, so I guess I could talk about 7 and the Distinia versions of the characters, but that's only through Let's Plays again, so questionable?
Yeah, and I've not played many myself, but I have played enough main installments to have a basically valid answer to this question.
Okay, well, I'll just go first and get the noob answer out the way. I guess 9 would probably be at the top for me, just because the characters are slightly a bit more complex. Then you get into Final Fantasy V, well, the characters, they're not really multi-layered, but they are still very optimistic, very likable, and very badass in their own way, especially Faris. I really like him. And Final Fantasy VII comes close since I actually did like Cloud of the Arky went on, and Tifa's good as well, although there are some characters which did feel kind of pointless ultimately, like Kinsif and Aerith. Sorry. I didn't say anything.
Yeah, that totally wasn't anything disguised as a grunt, no.
And finally, the characters of Final Fantasy III would probably be rock bottom because, well, let's be honest, they aren't really characters in any kind of sense. In fact, Dissidia completely ignored them and just made up Onion Knight to replace the Final Fantasy III cast.
Yeah, which is almost unfortunate because I would have loved to see them try and salvage what little there was to Final Fantasy III's protagonist, but at the same time, I can see why they just wouldn't go through with the effort.
Yeah, so, Sven, the opinion that actually matters here.
Okay, Final Fantasy IX on top, easily, no questions. One of my favorite games ever. Then, huge gap, Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy XIII, XII, and then a gap the size of the Marianas Trench, Final Fantasy VIII.
Oh, wow. Actually, one interesting note here is that 13 is above 12. Because a lot of people, again, I haven't seen much of 13, so I can't back it up this, but a lot of people have told me 13's characters aren't really, well, likable in any sense, so...
It might just be personal preference, but I prefer even them to Final Fantasy XII. I hated Final Fantasy XII. Not as much as I hated 8, but still...
Is that the one where the protagonist was just added on because they thought the intended protagonist was too old or something like that?
Final Fantasy XII? Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, I can see why they would fall down with that great start.
Yeah, and furthermore, I've read into the plots of Final Fantasy XIII sequels, and even I'll admit, as someone who did not like Final Fantasy XIII in the slightest, they did improve, so I'll give them that.
Okie doke. Yeah, that was a pretty good list, and if nothing else, this question is a reminder that I need to play more Final Fantasy.
Yeah, mostly what I find in Final Fantasy VII is a lot of charm behind a lot of ham.
Our second question comes from Bison Legend 9001, and he asks,
what are your thoughts on Zelda Hyrule Warriors and all the Twilight Princess content?
No idea. I pay barely any attention to Hyrule Warriors. Is that the fighting game thing with the humanized bosses?
Yep.
I like that concept, but that's just about all I know.
Yeah, that's fair enough. This is something I've actually been following pretty closely because, well, let me be honest, for reasons I'll explain in a later video, I've been kind of slowly going off the Zelda series, so just to see a game like this that takes let's be honest, a complete 180 in terms of direction, it will be a nice refreshing change of pace. And if nothing else, it'll be like a gateway introduction to Dynasty Warriors, because I've heard a lot about those games but never played them.
Yeah, all I know about Dynasty Warriors is that it has terrible voice acting.
Yes, which might not be an issue given that it's Zelda and the characters almost never speak.
Yeah, hopefully they just stick to text boxes. It worked for Fire Emblem right up until Awakening.
Yeah, pretty much. And I've also got to say that I really do love the redesigns they're giving all the characters, and I especially like the fact that they're using this chance to get the other members of the cast involved, because seeing Zelda and Impa actually taking part in the battle and kicking ass, that's just awesome, I'm not gonna...
Yeah, I completely agree with you there, because I've been with the Zelda franchise since about 1998, so to see that finally happen is massive wish fulfillment on my part.
Indeed. And also, one other small detail that's making a lot of people happy is that Zelda is actually a queen in this. She's not a darn princess.
Thank God. For a while, mostly with Nintendo because they're very prone to this for some reason, I was kind of suffering from princess overload. Happens a lot with Disney, too.
Yeah, both of those companies have a tendency to do that.
Yeah, now all I ask for is a competent Princess Peach and I'll be happy with Nintendo.
Well, she is kind of like that in Super Mario 3D World, so yeah.
That is true. I will give them that. Small steps are better than no steps.
Indeed, and hopefully those small steps we'll see progress on that in later Mario games. But anyway, as for the Twilight Princess content, I honestly don't mind it. Yeah, if I'm gonna be brutally honest, the Twilight Princess outfit looks absolutely horrendous on the Link's model, but here's the thing about Twilight Princess, I don't hate the game. I honestly don't, and I don't mind the fact that Midna and Zant are in the game. It is a great character, and Zant was a good villain. And again, Twilight Princess had a lot of cool content in it, especially the ball and chain, that is also an equipable weapon for Link, which I'm glad, because that was a lot of fun to use.
Yes, I agree with that. Because the thing is, you may have gotten the wrong impression from the VGT review. Neither of us hate Twilight Princess, but we make fun of the game because, oh my god, what happened to the story halfway through?
Yeah, that is the thing. I'm gonna be brutally honest here. If Ganondorf had just stayed out of it, if the story had just focused on Zant as the villain, I honestly wouldn't have minded it so much. In fact, Twilight Princess actually would have been one of my favourite games. It's just, the problem is, there are some weird decisions that happen halfway through. Ganondorf shoving his way in there. The tutorial taking way too long. That basically just hammered the game overall. So, I've no problem with the Twilight concept being in this game, just as long as Ganondorf doesn't hijack the plot for no good reason other than tradition, basically.
Yeah, other than Ganondorf sells.
Yeah,
but...
Well,
actually, he wasn't the selling point, because he was unforeshadowed until the second act of Twilight Princess, so...
Yeah, that's also the reason why that particular plot point's so grating.
But, yeah, so long as they don't do that again, I have no problem with it either. There may have been some really, really strange design choices in Twilight Princess. You mentioned most of them, but I'd also like to mention that just hilariously incompetent rebellion.
Oh, yes, I completely forgot.
You know, the plot point that gave birth to Richard.
Pretty much. Oh, yes.
That plot point was so bad, I love it, actually.
Yeah, I'd forgotten those sketches were so much fun to do.
That was one of my favorite parts of any VGT ever.
But yeah, getting away from our own stuff. Yeah, I have no problem with the Twilight Princess content. I even don't have a problem with Fee being a playable character in this either, because, again, if Fee's a playable fighter, she won't interrupt you for 5 minutes to tell you, by the way, you're about to die. By the way, if you press A, you can do this. By the way, the door you need to go through is 5 steps away from you. By the way...
Yeah, like Navi on steroids.
Pretty much. Somehow, a character that is somehow worse than both Ezio and Navi combined.
Oh god.
Wait, Ezio? Elzo!
Oh god! That was one hell of a error of speech.
Oh god, imagine having Ezio as your companion in the Zelda series.
Oh god, I'd take him over Fee. Oh god, I'd even take his pre-main story self over Fee, and that's saying something, because he was an annoying teenage twat.
Oh god. Oh geez. Pop it out from behind. You only have one heart left. Gather some quickly or I'll perform a mercy killing.
That's some motivation.
Oh geez. So yeah, Hyrule Warriors I'm really looking forward to, and I'm keen to play it in September.
Right, next question. Again from Vice of Legends.
Capcom is going to sell their main video game icons. Who do you think should buy what? Example, Sony should buy Resident Evil, and Nintendo should buy Mega Man.
Ooh, interesting question.
Especially considering I don't play Capcom games.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, my only real experience with Mega Man was losing to Bubble Man.
I'm guessing this is most likely a hypothetical situation because I haven't heard anything about it, although I really hope it's true given the nature of it.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I'd say, there are a good couple of ones. I'm going to throw a curveball in there and get an answer that probably no one thought of. I would like Arc System Works to buy Street Fighter. And for those of you who don't know, Arc System Works are the same company that produced Guilty Gear, Blaze Blue, and Persona 4 Arena.
Okay, I see where this is going, because I did in fact play Blaze Blue.
I really like them because, well, A, they make really great fighting games, and B, whilst they do have a tendency to have ridiculously convoluted world mythologies, they do make some really great storylines. Like, I really wish I could remember his name offhand. Like, the main writer and director of Blaze Blue has flat out said that it's not enough for him to just say it's a fighting tournament, everyone has to fight. He considers story to be incredibly important, especially in a fighting game, and he wants people to care about the characters and get attached to them. And given the fact that Street Fighter 4, whilst making some mild advancements, is kind of at a standstill because they absolutely refuse to take the characters out of the same cliched plots they've been stuck in for the past 10 or so years. It would just be really nice to have people who actually care about the stories, the people who can actually write complex characters, because Blaze Blue, oh my god, the characters, they are wonderful shades of grey and have multiple angles to them, and the fact that, here's one example of how much these guys care about the story. In Blaze Blue Continuum Shift, slight spoiler, the final boss of that is Noelle Vermillion after she's basically been brainwashed and enhanced by the villains. And in Chrono Phantasm, because players have gotten used to that version of Noelle's fighting style, they needed to bring her back as a playable character. Now, in any other fighting game, they would either write in, oh, she's a clone that's been created by the enemy, Or they would just have it so that she exists and doesn't have any part of the story to just hope that you don't question it. Ace Blue, in the next game, Chrono Phantasm, they actually worked it in as character development for Noelle. It's kind of convoluted to explain without giving it the spoilers, but basically, the fact that they decided, hey, how about we think of a way that not only makes sense, but actually advances our characters, as opposed to, let's just stick her in there and hope that the players don't think about it too much. It's just a really amazing step in terms of fighting games. And if you're thinking, well, that sounds too convoluted for Street Fighter, those games give the best of both worlds, because there's a story mode for all of that serious stuff, and there's an arcade mode for people who just want to jump in, play a few matches, and get a special ending at the end. So, best of both worlds, really.
Yeah, now that you put it like that, I would actually play Street Fighter if it was more like BlazBlue. Because, fun fact about me, I may have been one of the only people who ever played Soulcaliburs 2 and 3 for the story.
Yeah, that's the thing. There are people who do actually care about the story of fighting games, and like I said, Soulcalibur has been making those advancements, Arc System Works has been constantly making those advancements in its series. Street Fighter has made some advancements, but they're still handing on nostalgia for most of the characters, and the fact that their latest release, Ultra Street Fighter 4, the story is not advanced at all. The only reason it's released is to modify some of the mechanics for tournament players. So they're pretty much ignoring anyone who wants to play those games for the story, whilst Arc System Works are catering to both. So, yeah, if Capcom did sell off Street Fighter to someone, Arc System Works would definitely be my first choice. Especially since, if nothing else, Street Fighter has a really good cast of English voice actors now, and I would love to see them in those characters do some more, I guess, complex and emotional scenes.
Yeah, I was just about to get to that, because Street Fighter has a very, very expansive and aesthetically very interesting cast that I'd love to actually see, do things.
Yeah.
Again, I might actually play Street Fighter if I could get into the characters who now have so much work put into their voices.
Oh, yes.
And now that I think of it, actually, I do have input on this, kind of, but I don't know where I'd take it, because I have played Phoenix Wright. Who would take over that series, I have no idea.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Maybe the same studio that did Layton, since they've had some kind of relationship?
That's the only thing that I can think of, even though I've never played Layton either.
I can't think of any others off the top of my head, so I'll just finish up with the obvious answer. Mega Man should definitely go to Nintendo, because, if nothing else, speaking of games that have been stuck in a time loop, this is the one time where I would give Mega Man to Nintendo and just go, hey Nintendo, you know how you like to occasionally put silly gimmicks that make one game completely different from the next? Please do that to this. Please. Please, for the love of God, get Mega Man out of this same stale formula he's been stuck in for over 20 years.
I can see why you would want that now that you put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, for crying out loud, the funny thing is, I've played ZX, I've played some of the future games beyond the classics, and they're still the exact same. It is literally just minor aesthetic differences and navigation. That is it.
Yeah, somehow Capcom has released exactly the same game, 20 times now, and managed to make a killing in sales every time.
I know, and the most inspirational and groundbreaking thing they've done in the past couple of years is making an 8-bit game in the 2000s.
Yeah, and literally that was just backpedaling further.
Pretty much. And on top of that, Kenji Inafune leaves the company, decides that he's going to create his own original, unique games on the independent scene, and he makes Mighty Number 9, a game which, I'm sorry people, is just more freaking Mega Man!
Yeah, even outside of Capcom, Mega Man cannot stop being Mega Man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, I know people are gonna get really mad at me, but I'm sorry, the absorption mechanic is not enough to distinguish it. It is Mega Man in all but a few aesthetic differences, that's it!
Pretty much.
Oh, jeez. So, yeah, I've just offended a lot of people, but yeah, that's my answer to that question.
I don't think you've offended as many people as I've crapped on One Piece fans.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, but we better swiftly moving on. Flashing lights, smoke screen. Next question. Our next question comes from Roy Havenstone 2, and since I've been dominating most of the questions, I've decided to pick this one.
Sven, if I wanted to get into the Might and Magic series, where would you suggest I start?
Wow, I did not expect that series to ever come up on this show again. Well, if you wanted to get into the Might and Magic series, just go with 7. That is generally the best game, even though I prefer 8. That's just simple preference. Because mostly, I find that 7 is easy to get into, not least because you can glitch the system.
Yeah, for those of you who haven't watched all episodes, let's just say you don't want to mess with Sven and a screwdriver.
Just ask my old computer chair. But, yeah, that would be my recommendation. Or, if you want to go slightly non-mainstream, get into the Heroes of Might and Magic series. That's basically what got me into turn-based strategy. You can thank Heroes of Might and Magic for me being here, because without that I wouldn't have gotten into Fire Emblem. And without Fire Emblem, I wouldn't have known Jonin.
Hooray! Were My Magic 1 to 6 not that great then, or?
Well, 6 is good. It just was outside of my preference. And 1 through 5 are on DOS.
Okay, yeah, that'd be fair.
Yeah, the only 2 games that I would recommend avoiding are 9 and 10. Although I don't know about 10 Legacy, because that was basically a reboot of the series that I have not played. But 10 was basically badly trying to be Oblivion and failing. And Might and Magic 9 just sucked. It was released approximately a year too early, because 3DO was getting desperate after Heroes of Might and Magic 4 failed in terms of sale numbers, so they were going badly bankrupt. So they just shoveled out Might and Magic 9 and went bankrupt.
Ouch.
Yeah, it was unfortunate, mostly because 9 had potential, firstly, and 3DO and New World Computing went bankrupt, thus robbing the world of Might and Magic until Ubisoft took over and made the series so mediocre I can't stand to play it.
Fair enough. When you say within your interest, is that in terms of difficulty, in terms of control, or?
It's mostly just the atmosphere of Might and Magic 6. Something about it just strikes me as odd. Given the fact that it was the first non-DOS installment, it might just be the fact that the colors were a bit off, and they were trying to figure out the graphics, but the mood I just couldn't get into after playing Might and Magic 7 and 8, which are incredibly colorful for first-person games.
Wow. Okay, yeah, this is Roy's question, but I might have to check them out one of these days.
Yeah, if anything else, I can at least guarantee they'll run on your computer, because Might and Magic 7 was released in 1998.
Yeah, my laptop fails to run now, then there's no hope.
Yeah, I would certainly hope it would run a game that's almost as old as I am.
Oh, dear.
Okay, next one is again from Roy Havenstone, and wow, this is a whammy.
Was it fair to accuse Nintendo of being homophobic or behind the times for how they handled the criticism labeled against Tomodachi Life's removing same-gender marriages from the game, considering Nintendo have portrayed homosexual characters in past games, from Heather and Fire Emblem to Tony and Earthbound, and when said feature was actually a game-breaking glitch?
Firstly, going into this question, because I've been kept very up-to-date on this whole issue, being on Tumblr, and Tumblr being the haven of social activism. Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say this. I wouldn't credit Nintendo entirely for Heather and Tony, because actually, I'm not sure about Earthbound, because I'm not sure who else produced that game. Because I know that Fire Emblem is first and foremost Intelligent Systems property, not Nintendo's. Nintendo just distributes it.
Yeah, and Earthbound, it's more the creation of Shikusatsu Itoi, who, I guess he's the closest thing Nintendo has to an auteur developer, because, well, not only has he steadfastly refused to make a sequel to Mother 3, there was also, I don't have the exact quote, but it's probably for the best, because when Earthbound was released on Virtual Console, when he was asked, what do you think of when you look back on Earthbound, his answer was 4 paragraphs worth of text, and even then, it was like so abstract. It was like, it's like thinking back on your childhood days, the smell of the roses as you skip through the woods. It's like,
oh my god!
It was one of those days when I tried reading an answer to go, wow, I'm very, very lost looking at this.
Okay, I didn't know that real people could be that fabled Cloud Cuckoo Lander.
Yeah, pretty much. And from what I've played of Earthbound, it is also a very strange game.
Yeah, I've seen that much. I still cannot get Gygas out of my dreams.
Oh, so, yeah, I think, just to bring some context for people who haven't been following it, basically, as Roy pointed out in his question, in the life simulator, Tomodachi Life, there was a glitch which had the positive side effects of allowing same-sex marriages, but also heavily broke the game and made it unplayable. So they fixed it, and some people were wondering why the same-sex marriages had been removed. And if they had just said, look, it's the glitch, it wasn't intended, we're sorry, that would have been fine. But the problem was, Nintendo worded their statement very badly. Their statement was, and I quote,
We didn't want to create a statement with this game. Tomodachi Life is a zany, wacky, friendly world and is based on the interactions between these crazy characters.
I think you can kind of gather who Nintendo is saying isn't real.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm kind of in two minds for this, because on the one hand, I get the reason why they said it, because whilst we in America and Europe are very progressive, and let's be honest, the whole concept of same-sex marriages isn't that much of an issue anymore. In the greater, I guess you could say, like the worldwide mentality, there are still countries that are vehemently opposed to homosexuality for whatever reason, although most of the reasons given are complete BS, but whatever.
Yeah, just about. You summed up my feelings on that issue.
Yeah, plus the fact that some countries still have the death penalty for it, which, again, complete BS, but... So yeah, I can kind of understand why Nintendo were tiptoeing around that, but that said, one of those markets is the West, and it is very progressive, and I kind of agree with Jim Sterling's viewpoint on this. The fact that you're saying that just being gay in itself is a statement is a really bad faux pas to make.
Yeah, and not only that, you're saying that these people don't exist in real life. This is the point that Yahtzee made. Like, I'd have to look up the direct quote, but you're saying that these people don't exist. What does that say about you?
Yeah, it's not just the fact that they don't think it exists, it's more the fact that they think that somehow being gay or addressing the fact that gay people exist is too heavy. That there's too much consequence for what they see as just a wacky bit of fun. And the funny thing is, when you actually get right down to it, unless they are actively having sex in public, which very rarely happens for the same reason no one else has sex in public, there's nothing actually devious or offensive about homosexuality. It's a preference, that's it.
Yeah, that's precisely it. It's people being who they are. Like, what is wrong with that?
Yeah.
And I remembered a bit of Yahtzee's quote that I'd really like to put into context here. They're trying to make this game so rabidly family-friendly, which is a bit odd considering that in the Mii creation system, it is entirely possible to create a Mii that looks like it has a dick for a face.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part.
So apparently, Nintendo thinks that dick face people are more real than gay people. And less offensive.
Oh god. But yeah, that said, I think Out of Touch is possibly the more accurate accusation, because here's the thing, and it's a slight issue I've had with places like Tumblr for a while now, is that there is a great difference between intent and implication. I'm pretty sure Nintendo aren't homophobic. They don't actually have a problem with that. It's more the fact that they didn't quite realize that it was a problem, because they just felt, oh, we're Nintendo, we only focus on gameplay and fun first, and we don't need to worry about all of these heavy adult things. That's the problem with that message. They handled it so badly, because, like I said at the start, if they had just said, we're sorry, it was a glitch, and it was never meant to be in the game, that would have been okay. It's the fact that by trying to explain that, oh, no, that's too deep, we didn't want it, they've offended a lot of people, and credit to Nintendo, they actually turned around and apologized for this by saying, okay, look, we're sorry, we didn't realize this would offend people, we'll add it into the next game.
Yeah, they at least saved face, so the comeback is a bit better than, say, whenever Ubisoft pulled its whole female protagonist shtick with the next Assassin's Creed game, and in response chat straight into a microphone.
Oh god, don't remind me about that, but...
Because let's face it, that's basically even more backwards than what Nintendo did. But
yeah,
at the same time here, we also have to realize this is a very old country in a... This very old country? What the dick? This is a very old company in a country that still has incredibly old-fashioned views in quite a few circumstances. So, ultimately, I'm glad they even did apologize.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think ultimately this is more of a case of sometimes, again, the whole intent versus implication thing. As you say, Nintendo are possibly a bit behind the times because of their mindset. That's why you need to kind of point these things out to them. Like, one of the best examples of this is the whole Jinx incident. There was this person, I really wish I could remember her name. She watched an episode of the Pokemon anime and saw the design of the Pokemon Jinx, who, for those of you who don't know, is basically a vaguely female-shaped form with all black skin, puffy lips, and blonde hair, was in a scene where a good number of Jinx were in a factory serving one white man. And going on the internet ranting about how, oh, Nintendo are absolute racist dicks who are promoting slavery. She wrote a calm, sensible letter to Nintendo, kind of explaining that, look, this is actually a horrible implication, and it's not something that should appear in a children's series. So Nintendo went, okay, we can see where you're coming from. Ever since, Jinx has been updated, so she's now purple. That episode has never been seen again, which is actually pretty good because it was a pretty shite episode, if I've got to be honest.
Not to mention the frankly embarrassing implications.
Yeah, and everyone got on with their lives and everyone was happier for it. Sometimes just pointing out the implication rather than assuming the worst of people is sometimes the best option, because more often than not, the people aren't actually like racists or homophobes, they just haven't realized the implications of their statements.
Yeah, and I think it may be regional bias, because most of these people who go on Tumblr and rant are used to the United States. And for all of the progress we've made, the bigots here, oh, they are horrible.
Yeah.
And they are numerous. The entire South is made up of them. Oops, did I say that out loud? but, yeah, honestly, this is my policy to the whole thing. If someone says something hideously problematic, chances are they've just not realized they've said it. I've been in that situation. So, what you do is this. Point out what they've done, and judge them on their reaction. If they apologize, move on with your life. If they don't, ditch them.
Yeah, that's a really fair policy, and like I said, Nintendo have apologized this time, and hopefully they will learn from this and keep it in mind later on in the series. And I think it will do Nintendo Power good now that their time-old response of, oh, we just wanted to focus on the gameplay and have fun with this, hasn't saved them. That it actually has caused people to go, no, look, that's not gonna wash. You've actually hurt and disappointed people with this.
Yeah. So, basically what we're saying is this. In this metaphor, think of Nintendo as an old-fashioned, but ultimately well-meaning, really, really, really old person. Compared to, say, Microsoft and the Xbox, which is basically an offensive 30-something neckbeard refusing to apologize for anything it does.
Sorry. Oh, sorry.
In this case, try and think of it like that. Nintendo have at least had the decency to apologize, and they've learned that their age-old response does not work. So hopefully their mindset will progress a bit in light of this incident.
Yeah.
Unlike Ubisoft.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, mistakes were made, here's something they learned from them. And, after that intense question, we now go on to a question from 2Junkie1. And for any new listeners who are having to hop on, well, let's just say, 2Junkie is a nice person, but there's a lot of madness in his questions, and as if to demonstrate that,
I need some horsehair to string my bow. As everyone knows, bow hair comes from the tails of unicorns. Know where I can get some?
I'm reminded of the days of Metal Gamer.
I think it's the same person.
That would explain it. That would explain it, alright. As to the question, I'm going to answer 100% seriously and say Equestria. I'm that much of a nerd.
Well, you could go to Equestria, but the thing is, you have to pull off some kind of dimension warping and I'm no real expert at archery, I will say this, but I have talked to a few guys, and honestly, I think you're doing it wrong. You need to get the mane from griffin hair. You'll be surprised, it's actually a lot longer than it looks, and it seems to be a bit sturdier. Unicorn hair it's a bit too fine, has a tendency to cut your fingers, at least from what I've heard.
Yeah, you know what? I'm no expert on archery either, so I'll just take your second-hand knowledge on this one.
Yeah, fair enough. As for where you can get griffins, not sure. You might find one or two in the Alps.
I seem to recall them being, at some point, being somewhere in England, but I think they've moved on.
Yeah, well, they moved on after... there were two dragons once. I think one of them was a metaphor for whales. They got into a fight, one of them died. It was a bit awkward. Griffins decided to move.
Where has this conversation gone? This is what I miss about Monkey Broadcast, because whenever you spend hours on end just answering questions, sometimes you need a little levity.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh, the complete insanity. But yeah, that's all the questions this week, and like I said, there are plenty more to answer in the future, and we always welcome new questions, so yeah, if you would like us to give insane answers to your questions, let us know.
Yes, we will happily do so. We will respond to your silliness 100% straight-faced for the sake of humor.
Indeed, indeed. With all the questions out of the way, it's time to get to...
Reviews!
In this new format, each of us brings one thing to review each month, and, well, we review it, basically. Nothing else to say about that.
Yeah, it's kind of what it said on the tin.
Yeah, I guess I'm going first, and there have been a lot of things I've wanted to review for a while, and in fact so many things, I ended up putting it to an audience vote, and as it turns out, it was a fairly even contest, but Sword Art Online won by one vote. Just to give some context for this, about 2 years ago, I ended up joining a streaming website called Crunchyroll, which is basically where people outside of Japan can watch anime legally. You can watch it without paying anything, but you get adverts for it. So if you want to watch it without adverts, you pay a monthly subscription.
And it's all subs, which is kind of unfortunate for people like me who prefer dubs.
Yeah, that is kind of true. Although, A, that's surprising to get full simultaneous cast, and B, it also gives you more incentive to buy the DVDs afterwards.
That's true. Even though I still prefer the dubs, that is true.
Yeah, I will admit I do prefer the dubs overall, but anyway, it has been a somewhat hit and miss affair. There have been several titles that I've watched on it that I had enjoyed, and for those of you who are wondering, my latest Space Pirates, bits of Attack on Titan, The World is Still Beautiful, Kokoro Connect, The Unlimited Nobu Kyosuke, that was also a really good action one. Oh, and, oh god, this is a ridiculously long one. I also enjoyed bits of Gerantina on the Rendezvous Planet.
Oh my god! What dictionary did they have to steal from to make that title?
Oh, and Giant Killing. That was a really great sports series. But anyway, point is, I have found a lot of decent titles on there. But that's not to say it's not been without its troubles. I have also watched shows like Campion, which I utterly despise. There was also, god damn these, Card Fight de Family de Faliga.
Oh my god! What were they on when they made these titles?
Yeah, I think they were trying to emulate Italian, but didn't quite work. And there was also a Card Fight Vanguard, which, well, I've already made fun of it in another Monkey broadcast.
Yeah, I seem to recall that one.
Another series I've also watched thanks to this site is Sword Art Online, which was certainly an interesting one. I can honestly say that I watched the first episode and it had me hooked, and the next 3 episodes after that were really enjoyable. But to give the premise for those of you who haven't seen this series,
a brand new MMO has been released to the public known as Sword Art Online, which relies on special netgear technology, basically a helmet you stick over your head, which transports the player into the world and uses their feelings to manipulate the game, which is a concept so cool, thousands and thousands of people have bought it on the first day, including Kirito, who was one of the beta testers and has been keen to get back into the world ever since. However, when everyone gets started for the first time, they suddenly notice that there is no way to log out. Everyone's unnerved by all of this, and then suddenly the game's creator appears in the sky wearing dramatic robes and then says to everyone, if you die in this game, your brain will be fried in microwaves. If anyone tries to take the netgear off your head, your brain will be fried in microwaves. You are now officially a part of this world. It is no longer a game. The only way you can escape is to reach the 100th floor of this tower at the center of the world. Until then, this is reality. And then he disappears, leaving several thousands of panicked and terrified players in his wake. So it's now up to Kirito and his friends to try and, well, basically get out of the MMO and back to reality.
For some reason, immediately in my head, the Samurai Jack theme started playing. Back to the Past, Samurai Jack.
Oh, jeez, that would have been cool. But no, it's not like that. In fact, the whole die in the game, you die for real premise is a little bit cliche, but what made it interesting was the fact that not only was it actually really pretty well told for the most part, the visuals and music and acting were all really good, but in these kind of situations, usually the whole die in the game bit is something that the players only realise halfway through. Like, there have been some strange goings on, but they don't know who it is, and then, oh my god, people are dying, this is something we've got to solve together over this online game. But in this case, it's a combination that A, they're stranded in the world, and B, the head honcho is not beating around the bush, he's not hiding the secrets, he's just come out and said, look, this is the new rules, I've set this up because I can. Bye. And no, I'm not joking, that is his actual motivation. I want to create a world and change it, so there we go.
I'm not sure what to make of that, at least he's honest.
Yeah, pretty much. It's basically the game's creator has like a massive god complex, so that's kind of what sets up the interesting conflict of the show. The fact that it's now no longer we have to find out what's going on, it's we have to find a way to get out. And like I said, the premise was interesting, and the next few episodes were really enjoyable. We had all the users trying to band together, but then being divided by conflicts. We had Kirito trying to join a guild, but then said guild dying in a tragic manner that causes him to be a loner. We have Kirito forming a relationship with a female player in Asuna. It was a really gripping series of episodes. Unfortunately, there was a pattern that started to emerge. I want to say the series has no subtlety, but the better phrase I can think of is that it has no restraint. The series knows how to use symbolic metaphors. It also knows when it needs a quiet moment to just let characters talk and not go straight into the action. But the problem is the author, there are elements that he kind of takes to all of their extremes. Like, okay, here's the best way I can describe it. Let's just say your dog stole the sandwich you're about to eat. your reaction would probably be, oh, god damn it, Fido, I was looking forward to that. No, now we're gonna have to make another sandwich, darn it. The reaction in Sword Art Online would be like this. What? No! The sandwich! No! I was looking forward to it. I was so great. Curse you, Fido!
Oh my god, I've heard a lot of ham in my time, and I usually like ham, but I think they cured that one a little too long.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Everything in this show is taken to its maximum extremes, and so, like, every single emotion is massively overbearing. Like, in another Monkey broadcast, we were talking about, like, emotion and drama and how it's used in fiction, and I said that Sword Art Online was one of those cases where, towards the end of the series, everyone cried, and it got absolutely ridiculous by the end of it. But, unfortunately, that's not the end of it. Like, let's look at our main character, Kirito. There are two elements right away. First, Kirito is seen as a nice guy. Even though he's kind of a loner, he still will go out of his way to help people, and he still makes friends easily. Okay, that's fine as a basis of the character. But they take it so that every guy looks up to Kirito and respects him, whilst every woman falls in love with him. Except for one, who thinks of him as a father.
What?
Yeah.
Oh god. Oh god. It's magnetic protagonist syndrome all over again. I'm having Ichigo flashbacks. Help.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, basically every female character, even if they're only in for one episode and will never be seen again, develops a crush on him. The other element about Kirito is that, again, it's expected that the hero is slightly stronger and slightly more talented than the other people around him in order to make him stand out. It gets worse than that. See, like I mentioned, Kirito was a beta tester, and it's established that there's a slight conflict between the beta testers and the players who started, mainly because the beta players, in a fit of survival instinct, instantly ran to all the best spots to get experience and equipment, and consequently left all of the other people out on their own without helping them. But anyway, the point is, Kirito is one of those beta players, but he turns out to be so much stronger than all of the other beta testers. They give him his own title, the Beater. Get it? See what they did there?
Okay.
It's a phrase that sounds kind of like beta, but doesn't.
Okay. We have a character who has magnetic hero syndrome like Ichigo, who is ridiculously overpowered like Ichigo, and then on top of that you throw on a shitty pun that not even I'd make. Pardon me, but I'm not taking this as a recommendation.
It gets worse because, aside from Kayaba, the creator of the game, who's playing kind of ambiguously neutral in a strange way, every other villain in the series is beyond redemption. Before the actual final conflict with Kayaba, there are two villains. One who is a guy that just seems to exist solely to make conflict. Like I mentioned, there was a conflict between the beta testers and the new players. This guy fuels most of it, because basically in all of the meetings, he's just wildly throwing out accusations and saying, it's your fault! People died and it's your fault! Okay, you've died. Now it's his fault! It is his fault!
Oh, God.
And that would be kind of fine on its own, because, you know, these type of characters have to exist. But then apparently, off-screen, in the course of a few episodes, it's revealed that he's suddenly gained a position of power and is willing to send people to their death in order to try and get more power. It's like, what, dude?
It's like those horrible one-note villains that pop up in Game of Thrones.
Then there's also a one-off character in a murder mystery episode, and he reveals his reason is, I killed my wife because she wasn't submissive enough, and we had an argument. That's perfectly justifiable, isn't it? Have I mentioned I'm evil?
Oh my God. Speaking of characters that could belong in Game of Thrones.
Pretty much. And the worst group, and these guys pop up again and again and again, are something which is it's trying to stay into the fact that this is an MMO, but it makes no logical sense, are player killers. Now, I don't play many MMOs, but what I understand, player killers are essentially groups that hunt down individual players and overwhelm them, which, okay, I can understand why that would work in an MMO, but it doesn't work in this scenario. In another series I can thoroughly recommend, and which has the same premise, but actually has some more logic to it, is Log Horizon. Because in that series, one of the first problems they have to deal with is player killing, but the reason it's happening is because everyone realizes that now that they're all trapped in the game, no one can die, gold is plentiful, inns are cheap, and they don't need to eat or drink to survive, therefore player killing is literally the only thing you can do for fun. So that's why that's become a rampant problem. They literally have to basically create an economy in order to stop that kind of thing happening. In this sense, you get no reward for killing the players, and everyone literally dies, and they know this. So we basically have a group of mass murderers who do it essentially for no reason.
Oh god. I keep mentioning Game of Thrones because it keeps coming up. We were just talking about a villain like this in Game of Thrones before we started this recording. It's not interesting!
Yeah, exactly. And on top of that, when Kirito actually questions them about this, their response is, and I'm not making this up,
Oh, who would believe something like that anyway?
you have been trapped in an MMO for months on end. Anyone who's died has not returned to the game. How stupid can you possibly be to insist that it's all a fantasy?
Oh my god. Oh my god. Again, excuse me, but I'm not taking this all as a recommendation for the series.
Oh, no, not at all, but I get it. Most of this I could tolerate and enjoy the ride, because like I said, the premise was interesting, and the emotions, whilst overbearing, there were still enough plot turns to make it interesting and a good fun ride. Then, something happened halfway through, because I mentioned before that Kirito has a relationship with another player named Asuna, and their relationship starts to take a greater precedence over the original premise, which, okay, fair enough, they do look good together as a couple, and their interactions are kind of cute, but they almost entirely forget that they're in an MMO. They just suddenly decide that, I'm really sick and tired of this fighting, we almost lost each other back then, let's retreat to a cabin in the woods. It's kind of a classic refusal of the call. They have like a brief bonding session in this cabin, they officially get married, and then they get pulled back into the fighting. But there are two reasons why the relationship irks me, apart from the fact that it's a completely different premise from what we started with. The first is that, again, this relationship is exaggerated to ridiculous proportions, not just in how much they love each other and how perfect they are for each other, but they have an AI within the game say, and again, I'm not making this up, that their love is the single greatest source of hope and joy in the entirety of the MMO.
What? Oh my god. I think my brain's broke.
Oh, jeez. And it then leads on to this other moment where, okay. The second problem is, like I said, it interferes with the premise, and it starts to take both characters in a really undesirable direction, because Asuna starts off as a pretty competent, self-reliant character, but then she kind of slips into, like, Kirito's fangirl territory. Like, she is still able to kick ass in fights, but she doesn't really do much aside from chat with Kirito and say how much they really love each other. But Kirito, he goes from someone who enjoys gaming and is trying to look out for everyone around him into someone who is, quite frankly, delusional. Because there is a scene just before they go off, which is kind of bad from a writing standpoint, which is when Asuna and Kirito meet a gentleman, and Asuna decides to flat out explain why she fell in love with Kirito instead of, letting her actions explain it, and this is the reason. When they first realized they were trapped, Asuna took everything incredibly seriously. She cried herself to sleep every night because she was worried about getting back home, and she just focused entirely on the training, making herself stronger, and trying to find a way to get past this tower. Then she met Kirito, who was asleep in the grass, and told her that the reason he was sleeping there was because he knew that the weather conditions for that area would be just right because of some predetermined game pattern, I don't know. Point is, through Kirito, she realized that she needed to stop taking everything seriously and just have fun with the game. Which would normally be a very good bit of plot advice. There's just one slight problem, though. They are trapped in this MMO. Against their will. They haven't eaten for months. They haven't seen their family for months. Close to a year by the time she says that. I'm all for loving game as much as the next person, but I don't want to do it against my will.
For the rest of your life.
Exactly.
This is not a game to enjoy.
It is just so trite and completely dismissive of everything that's going on. People have died in this game, for crying out loud. Hundreds have died, and what makes it even worse is that when they do finally get back into the combat, Kirito, even right until the very end, he's constantly trying to dodge out of it. Like, what if we just didn't fight? What if we just carried on and just lived our normal lives in this MMO? Would that really be so bad? It only takes for someone to point out that actually, we've just realized that we haven't eaten for about a year. Even if we don't die in the game, we're probably going to die due to starvation, because our bodies can't take it. That's the time when he has to get back into action. Otherwise, he's just sitting there going, oh, do we really have to do this? I'd like to play the game some more. It's like he's deluded himself to the reality of the situation and just wants to escape it, which... that's not hero material. I'm sorry, it's not.
Yeah, and the thing is, that could be a very interesting way to present a character if it were any other character. He's supposed to be driving the plot.
Yeah, that's the main problem here. And all of this, as silly and ridiculous as it is, like I said, I tolerate it for the most part, because there were still a few good, enjoyable moments out of it. The fighting was good, the music was good, there were some good emotional moments that were well done. So I followed it through to the end of this arc. Because here's the thing. That premise I gave you is the first arc, which is about 12, 13 episodes, and the new arc goes something like this.
For reasons I won't spoil, in the final part of the arc, Kirito lost something, and he's wondering if he'll ever be able to get it back. And as it turns out, it appears in another MMO that was made by a different company because, well, let's face it, when you make an MMO that entraps hundreds of kids inside it and ends up killing off a good chunk of them, you're not doing business after that.
Yeah! And everyone knows about it at this point.
Yeah, pretty much.
So yeah, it's found in another MMO, and so Kirito jumps into it to try and find it.
Now already, this premise could be interesting, but it's on a very shaky ground because you're back in a regular MMO, so death means nothing, meaning you kind of lost that particular part of the premise. This is where things start to go downhill, though, because they make some other changes in direction that are just... Well, let me put it this way. You know how I said every single woman falls in love with Kirito? Apparently this implies to everyone, including his little sister. Yep. And they try to explain it away by going, oh, they aren't actually brother and sister. Kirito had a different mother, so they're more like cousins.
That's
no.
not how that works.
No, they were still raised as brother and sister, so that is still fucking creepy.
Oh my god, no. 1,000 times no.
Yeah, but the thing is, Kirito is still in love with Asuna and is all but married to her at this point, so it's introduced in a love triangle that is completely pointless because Kirito is never going to acknowledge her for more reasons than one.
I would certainly hope so.
But on top of that, it gets silly because as soon as he enters the MMO, the first thing he mentions is a character named Leaf, who is Kirito's sister playing the MMO. And they don't recognize each other. This, despite the fact that neither of them disguise their voice. And Kirito uses the online handle of Kirito.
Stupid to get these characters be.
Oh god. But then, that was all incredibly irritating for me, but there were two steps that completely wrecked it. The first is that when Kirito enters the new MMO, he finds out that because it uses roughly the same engine as Sword Art Online, his stats carry over.
Oh, yay.
So, already, Kirito is now much stronger than the average player of this MMO. So, again, all sorts of tension gone, since death is no longer permanent, and Kirito is stronger than everyone there. So.
Oh, that's just perfect.
But the final straw, the thing that made me just quit was the new villain of this arc. Now, like I said, everyone is beyond evil, and this guy, he just pissed me off, not because of the way he acted, but more because I knew what emotions the creators were trying to get out of me. They were so ridiculously obvious and manipulative that it just pissed me right off, because I knew what was going on, and I don't like being manipulated like that. Especially since, again, the guy is so reprehensibly evil, especially right down to the fact that one of his main gimmicks is, I love smelling an unwilling girl's hair in the morning.
Oh, Jesus me.
Yeah.
I know where this is going. And it reminds me an awful lot of Ramsay Snow.
Yeah. And this is all bad in itself, but it turns out this guy is a major part of the company that runs this new MMO, and he reveals his main plan, which... Oh, my God. Okay. He's looked at this MMO, and has said that Kayaba was short-sighted, because he feels that a device that can project a video game into one's field of vision is the perfect device for brainwashing! And he wants to sell this technology on the black market and use his MMO as a testing ground for said brainwashing. They are seriously saying that this guy is trying to use video games to take over the fucking world.
Oh my God. I have no words. Although with the way Microsoft's been presenting itself lately with the Xbox One, I can kind of see them trying to do the same thing, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, it's just, with all of that, with all of the incense, with the lack of tension, with the revelation that this was the villain's plan, I just went, no more, I cannot do this, I cannot watch this shit, I'm done.
Nope, right out, and I don't blame you in the slightest.
Yep, I leapt off. I don't care what happens in the rest of the series. I don't even care that there is a third arc that is being released this month, as a matter of fact. I don't care. I don't want to put up with this anymore.
Oh my God. You know, it's really funny how a story can be so bad it makes you think favorably about Bleach.
Yeah. That's the sad part. It would be one thing if it was been straight up bad all the way through, but Sword Art Online, it had potential in its premise. It has a lot of decent production value, and like I said, I enjoyed the first 3 episodes, and that's also why I can't be too hard on people who do like it, because I can understand. Like I said, it's a big, over-the-top emotional series, and it's very easy to get caught up in it, and be taken on this roller coaster of feelings, or whatever you want to call it. understand all that. The problem is, in my end, I couldn't deal with it. After so many stupid lines, so many changes in direction, so much lack of tension, so much sheer stupidity that keeps happening over and over and over again, I just couldn't do it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and again, I don't blame you. Never before have I taken the review as such a recommendation not to get into something.
Indeed. So, being true to my word on getting on the first bus out of here, Sven, please tell me you've got something good to review.
Yeah, funnily enough, I have another series about a reality-altering game with ridiculously high stakes. I swear this is going to be better than Sword Art Online.
It better be, mate, it better be.
Yes, everyone, the time has come. As much of an undertaking as it is, I am going to try and explain Homestuck.
Oh, this'll be interesting.
For the sake of brevity, because this person has somehow managed to explain the series much better than I will ever be able to do in my living years, I am going to handily use this plot summary provided by user OpenSketchbook on forum.frontrowcrew.com. Yeah, I agree with him whenever he says Homestuck is almost impossible to explain, but he sure did a better job than anyone else.
Hooray!
Homestuck is the tale of a young boy and his friends who set out to play a video game. This video game seems to let you play The Sims with the other players' houses, but as it turns out, it is a mechanism used to end one universe and start another, keeping the constant death and rebirth cycle going. The kids enter a game world, defeat bosses, and set up not only their own existence retroactively, but plant the seed that becomes the next universe into which they ascend as gods. Unfortunately, something goes wrong with their game. A minor NPC gains near infinite powers and starts f***ing with stuff. So they're contacted throughout their game by the previous players, the trolls, in an attempt to figure out what went wrong. As of the most recent act, they've rebooted their game and their entire universe, but it's going even more off the rails.
This is a bit out of date, by which I mean it's about 2 years out of date now, but that's still basically an effective summary of the plot. And again, way better than I can do. So yeah, that dictionary was Homestuck.
Wow, that was a lot to take in. Very interesting premise, but yeah, that was a lot to take in.
That's Homestuck in a nutshell. It's 10,000 pages long.
Oh, wow.
Which actually is shorter than Bleach whenever I think about it, but still.
Yeah, but still, 10,000 is a big number.
Yeah, luckily you read it just by mindlessly clicking on the next button and reading the text that pops up every now and again, but still. Yeah, the first thing a person has to admit about the Homestuck is it is an interesting premise, because it takes the whole death game concept to whole different levels, and universes, and timelines, and alternate realities. In that, not only is it a death game, and you're actively participating in it, and you are entirely capable of being killed, but you are literally altering reality around you.
Wow, I can see where the complications come in. I can imagine that leads to a lot of paradoxes.
You know what? You perfectly guessed it, because I haven't even gotten into the alternate timelines.
Oh, wow.
But, yeah, basic premise aside, it's not even the premise itself that I focus on, because it's difficult too, mostly. But secondary to that, the reason that I like Homestuck so much, and that I always have avatars of the characters as my display pictures on Skype, is because the author of Homestuck, Andrew Hussey, for all of the trolling that he does of his own fandom, I will admit this of him. He is one of the most masterful writers at character development I think I've ever seen.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is saying something, considering my favorite author is Terry Pratchett, and this is comparing it to him. So, what Homestuck really has going for it, and what has kept me attached to the series through all the convolution, is the fact that you have such a massive cast of characters that are each so intricately planned with their own quirks, their own lifestyles, their hobbies. You know all of this about them, but it makes a very interesting experience reading all of this bananas Doctor Who level paradoxy going on through their eyes.
Wow, I'm getting more and more intrigued by this as it goes on, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Honestly, I would recommend it just for the character cast, because Andrew Hussey does a job of character development a lot like George R.R. Martin, because he can make completely and utterly horrible characters completely sympathetic.
Okay, yeah, that is definitely drawing me because I love character stories, and honestly, it's the complex characters that have made me stay through Game of Thrones, even with all the terrible decisions in that series.
Yeah, I mean, I know we ranted about Jaime Lannister before we started on this, and the whole character assassination that he just went through in Game of Thrones Season 4, but, yeah, I'm thinking of a character very much like him whenever I say that. Andrew Hussey pulled off a character very similar to that, and it was very impressive.
Wow.
In fact, that character is currently my avatar. Funnily enough.
Hooray, I have context!
But, yeah, if you can struggle through the whole convoluted mess that is the plot, I think the series is worth it just as a character experience, because that was honestly what drew me in. I didn't even start reading the series properly to get into it. What I did was look up fan art and stories about the characters, and I was like, I love these people already. Because they're just so fascinating.
Yeah, I'm definitely need to look this up now, because this sounds absolutely fascinating, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, you'd be amazed what you end up thinking about the characters, and how you end up viewing the universe, as vague as it is, through how they experience it. And that's what makes it fascinating, honestly, because, just for the record, Homestuck is about to end, and I'm less concerned about how it does end and more what happens to the characters.
Yeah, that sounds fair enough. I mean, I will admit that premise sounded incredibly convoluted, but then, like I said, I'm a fan of Blaze Blue. I'm used to incredibly convoluted worlds that barely make any sense.
Yeah.
I think I'll be fine with this.
Yeah, all you really need to get used to are the convoluted mess that is the plot, and Andrew Hussey's sense of humor, which makes it just about as much sense as the plot.
Wait, is that in the comic or out of it?
In the comic, because Homestuck has a very prominent comedy aspect to it through all of this. Somehow, with how grim the series is and how complex it all gets, there is a massive comedic element to it. Some of it is just bizarre. Almost in a Discworld kind of way.
Huh. Can you give an example of that, or is it too hard to explain?
You'd have to see it to believe it.
Okay.
Like, for whatever reason, just as one example, for some reason, Andrew Hussey decided to make a meme out of horses.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, the humor can get nonsensical, is what I'll say of it.
Okay, yeah, that definitely sounds like something I'm gonna have to try and understand for myself.
Yeah, and if it helps any, it's not completely absurdist. It switches back and forth between making no sense and just being flat out snarky and ironic. So, there are moments of brevity in between all the nonsensical mishmash, so if that's not your thing, there should be something there for you.
Okay, look, that's good. So, I'm going to take it with statements I put to the author alongside George R.R. Martin and Terry Pratchett that you are recommending this then.
Highly recommending it. You heard the joke I made about George R.R. Martin, Isayama, and Andrew Hussey walking into a bar and everyone dying. I say that, but Andrew Hussey really isn't all that bad, because the game he developed is as such that characters have ways of coming back again and again and again. So...
okay.
So you aren't in for quite the exasperating roller coaster of deaths that Game of Thrones is, if that helps matters any.
Yeah, that does. So, this being a webcomic, where can people find it if they want to look it up?
mspainadventures.com. You can find the entire series there, start to finish, if you can endure the task that is reading through all 8,000 pages of it.
Fair enough. So, with that solid recommendation, we can now move on to the final section, which is...
Quickfire Reviews!
This is a section where we can bring up anything else we want to review, but only within the maximum time limit of 60 seconds. So, anything else we want to throw in?
Yeah, I'll throw in the most recent and fascinating venture into online gaming I've had.
A slash FPS game called Ballistic. Basically, It's a cross between Team Fortress 2 and Call of Duty without the hideous fandom and plot of Call of Duty. And it's completely free, so that's a plus.
Hooray! So, all new fans, flood into that, and actually, no, wait, you would probably bring the bad traits of Call of Duty and Team Fortress 2 with them. You know what? Stay there! Stay there and
Yeah, all I'll do is recommend it to everyone listening because I have faith that none of you are, Call of Duty militaristic douchebags.
Hooray! Okay, on my end,
Game of Thrones Season 4, just finished it. Overall, it's still the same Game of Thrones, so it's still the complex character stuff intermixed with so much gore and sex that even anime fans would think, cool, blimey, they're laying it on a bit thick. But overall, enjoyable season. There were some really nice character sections. The Hound and Arya Stark was pretty interesting, as does anything to do with Tyrion Lannister. But at the same time, there were some bits that kind of dragged on a bit. I don't give a toss about Ramsay Snow, can we please drop him? And like Sven said, there was that scene with Jaime Lannister that was completely out of character, and the fight between the Mountain and the Red Viper, which I'll only sum up by saying skulls do not work that way.
That's just about the best you can do.
yeah. And
Nintendo Pocket Football Club, a downloadable title for the 3DS eShop, which at the moment I think is only available in Europe. It's not the most complex football manager sim ever. In fact, if you like games like Championship Manager and the like, then you're probably going to be disappointed by how simplistic it is. But if you find those games too overwhelming and want a more simplistic approach that has really adorable pixel art, then I can thoroughly recommend this. It's a good time killer if you're ever bored. Plus, creating your own team instead of following a pre-existing team is also a nice touch. And in case you're wondering, my team is called the Ninja Apes because branding.
Of course.
Thought I'd throw that one in there since at the time of recording the football/soccer World Cup is on, so seasonal, I guess. Also, just a side note since we have mentioned both things a couple of times, one semi-gratifying thing that just shows how popular this series have gotten. For those of you who don't know, the host nation of this particular World Cup, Brazil, who are usually one of the most dominant teams due to the massive wealth of talent that comes from that country, got to the semi-final and it ended up being defeated 7-1 by the opposing side. The immediate Twitter reaction to this was that the performance was so bad, many people tweeted, "This is the football equivalent of the Game of Thrones Red Wedding."
I don't even do sports, but that's fantastic. Especially since I say I don't do sports, but I recently got kind of into it because I watched the 2014 Super Bowl. And it's funny that I watched that because that game featured the Denver Broncos, one of the best teams in American football, losing in one of the most humiliating landslides in Super Bowl history.
Yeah. That was kind of probably the exact same experience of the Brazil-Germany match. It's one of the best teams in the entire world, losing by such a dramatic margin again.
Yeah, oh my god, the Red Wedding is the perfect analog.
Oh, jeez. So, we end the show on the complete crushing of sporting dreams.
Yeah, and you know what really sucked about the Super Bowl team? I was rooting for that team. Their state is just south of me. I like Colorado.
Oh dear. But yeah, on that unfortunate note, that brings this month's Monkey Broadcast to a close. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll tune back to the next one, which will be probably just as crazy, not going to lie.
I certainly hope so, because this was a great episode back, everyone.
Oh yes. And if you want further updates on what I've been playing and what the progress is on both this and many other videos, feel free to follow me on Twitter at the Jonin Monkey. But we've reached the end of this show, so until next time, I've been the Jonin Monkey.
And I've been Sven the Crusader. I look forward to doing this again next month.
That was Monkey Broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show hosted by the Jonin Monkey and Sven the Crusader. If you feel that you've been the subject of slander or that your copyright has been misused, please PM me and I'll try and get round to fixing it as soon as possible. We also welcome any comments, be it feedback or your own viewpoints on any of the things we've discussed. Until next month, have fun kids!